Thank you all for coming today. My name is Rebecca Roper. I'm the head of teaching and learning here in IDT, and you are very welcome to this FYMMO event, Assessing Futures, the Postgraduate Pathways. Today we're looking specifically at IT and psychology, and we have some very esteemed guests from UCD, UCC, IDT, and DCU. So many acronyms, I don't know what to do with myself. But I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit very briefly about FYMMO. This is the Final Year Matters Moving On program that we have here in IDT. And that started out as a dovetailed balancing program with our first year program. So first year is all about belonging to the Institute, and then FYMMO is all about becoming. What have you done over these last years? Who are you now? Who were you then? And who do you want to be next? So one of the people who has gone through our program, one of the programs here in IDT, is the wonderful Louisa Keogh, and she is working as the coordinator now for the FYMMO program. So I'm going to turn over to Louisa and let her conduct this session. I hope you get a lot out of it. I will be on the chat, so I'll be able to answer any questions there and feedback to this group. Thanks so much for coming. Louisa?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Yes, so as Rebecca kindly introduced me, my name is Louisa Keogh, and I am a graduate of IDT, and they can't seem to get rid of me because now I'm the coordinator for the Final Year Matters Moving On program. So it's a really rewarding job, especially on days like today when we get to have such professionals along to really demystify the process of applying for postgraduate programs through looking at the assessment of postgraduate programs. So specifically today we have a fantastic lineup of professionals from the psychology and IT space, and we're going to be chatting about what assessment can look like and how you can do your best work where it matters most in those applications. So I'm just going to run through our wonderful panels today. We have Dr. Dimitri Hadzapoulos from UCD. We have Dr. Simon Caton from UCD. We have our very own John Dempsey from the Department of Technology and Psychology here at IDT Dunleary. We have Dr. Angela Veal from UCC and Dr. Sinead Smith from DCU. So you're all so welcome today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be such a treat. And this session will be recorded and it will be popped up on the FYMMO YouTube and website going forward. So if you can't make it today and you're watching this in the future, then you're very welcome. So yeah, I'm just going to kick us off maybe by going through our panelists. And if you wouldn't mind maybe talking a little bit about your job title in your institute and maybe the kinds of applications you assess. I might just go through our panelists as I see them on the screen, if that's okay. So Simon, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Louisa. So my name is Simon Caton. So I'm from University College Dublin, School of Computer Science, where I'm an assistant professor. So both Demetrius and I, we look after the conversion masters. So this is a course for people who have not studied computer science, did not do it at school, who have never really done any formal computer science before. And this course is tailored for people who would like to convert to computer science. So the sorts of things that we get, the kind of student. We get a lot of art students, we get a lot of psychology students, we get a lot of science students, we get engineering students, we get everything except computer science and computer engineering and cognate disciplines such as information systems and things like that. We assess, so Demetrius and I probably assess upwards of 600 applications to the course per year for about 100 places. We have an IADT student, at least one on the course at the moment, by the way. I can't say more than that for obvious reasons, but we do have at least one IADT student on the course right now. In terms of, what sort of applications do we get everything. We get everything from the really good ones to the ones that obviously miss the mark by quite a bit. Perhaps this is a question for later, but we can go into exactly what these questions look like, or these problems look like. But typically it's a CV, letters of recommendation, a transcript, and then a 2-1 or higher plus an H5 or equivalent in maths. Louisa, I think that was all of your questions. I hope I didn't miss anything.
No, that's absolutely great. Thank you so much, Simon. Sinead, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I am an associate professor in the School of Psychology in Dublin City University, and one of my roles here is to coordinate the Masters in Psychology and Wellbeing. So I, some of the team members on the Masters would be assessing the applications that come in. We're a relatively small program, so we take in 20 students each year, which is a really nice class size, allowing for lots of nice discussion and I suppose getting to know your classmates and your lecturers as well. We run two pathways, so it's both full-time and part-time, but primarily we allocate the majority of our places to full-time students. So about 75% of the class will be running through it for 12 months full-time, whereas the other 25 might be doing it for 24 months part-time. The program is aimed at psychology graduates or those in their final year. So eligibility for the program, it requires that you are essentially eligible for graduate membership of the Psychological Society of Ireland. It doesn't mean that you have to be a graduate member, but it means that you have completed or are about to complete a program that's either accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland or that would meet similar requirements if you're studying outside of Ireland. So I think that's one of the major things to highlight, that it is for at the moment psychology graduates only, although there's a lot of interest from other disciplines, and who knows down the line if we may go that route. Yeah, so we do see some, I suppose, diversity within that cohort. Yes, they're all psychology graduates, but we have people on the program, from all around the world. And we also have people who might come directly from an undergraduate, people who might, take a year or two out and then come to us, but also people who might have been working in industry or some other area for quite a number of years, and who might come and do this maybe as continuing professional development or looking for maybe a career change as well. So while we're primarily aimed at psychology graduates, like I said, it's it's a squiggly line where you go once you have a psychology degree. So we kind of take people at any point on that squiggly line.
That's great. Thank you so much. I love that imagery of the squiggly line as well. It's very evocative. Thank you, Sinead. Dimitri, would you like to maybe talk a little bit about your work and the kind of applications you assess?
So practically the HDIP is a part of the conversion. We have 27 spots for HDIP students, and we offer them the option of converting again, but from HDIP to the MSc at the end of the first trimester. So around January, February, they can decide if they want to move into the MSc, but they have to have passed all the modules of the first trimester. Also, the first two trimesters are the same for the MSc and the HDIP, but during the summer, the HDIP students are going for an internship, while the MSc students stay for a big research practicum, and then they have an extra trimester where they get elective modules together with another master that we have on negotiated learning, which is for computer scientists. Yes, we have 27 spots. Usually they are filled up quickly. Sometimes we check whether some of the MSc students are eligible for the HDIP, and we give them the recommendation of whether they want to consider it. But yeah, that's it. I have to mention that it's a requirement from Springboard to have an internship. So that's why they go for an internship during the summer. And UCD provides a lot of support for finding the internship positions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dimitri. Thank you. John, would you like to speak a little bit on that?
Hey, I'm the program coordinator for an MSc in User Experience Design in IADT. The program is a 2-year part-time program. From this year, it's been delivered online. So our applicants, we have 24 places on the program. Our applicants would come from a range of backgrounds. We have people from computing, visual communication, some psychology graduates, some people with a business background, and we've had people with an arts background. In terms of entry requirements, we look for a second-class honours degree, but you also need to have some kind of experience in user experience design or interaction design. So we usually ask students to, as well as filling in the application form and sending in CVs and so on, we get people to submit a portfolio of the work that they've done before. So yeah.
Thank you so much, John. That's great. And last but by no means least, Angela, would you mind? Thank you.
Hi, Louisa. So I'm a senior lecturer in the School of Applied Psychology in UCC. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you perfectly.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just checking if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I'm course director of the Masters in Applied Psychology, and that is a course for psychology graduates. So you have to be eligible for graduate membership of the PSI or the BPS. If you're for international students, you can get that certification through either an application to PSI or the BPS. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks. Just to note that. And the program is of interest to a diverse range of students. So a core element is an optional placement. So we offer community-based placements in organisations like the ISPCC, Tabor Lodge, Simon Community, social inclusion team, Edel House that works with young people, and many people apply because of they're interested in gaining practical experience. So the placement is 20 credits. There's a large research component to the program. So another reason people would apply is those that are interested to go on and do PhD studies. So they might opt not to do placement, but rather to, do other credits that might support their application in an area of their interest. For your students, it might be interesting to know we have a very active people and technology research lab. And so there is some excellent supervision in the area of psychology and technology for those that might be interested in that route. And students come to us because they're interested in the professional area. So many of them use it to go on to apply for a doctorate in clinical psychology, counselling psychology, or educational psychology, and to try and get their placement experience that would match, building up their CV for that. But we also get lovely searchers, the ones who aren't sure yet what they want to do, and they're taking some time to kind of explore pathways, build experience and skills, and many people actually go into jobs directly from the masters, often in community-based settings. An important element of our application process is a research statement. So we don't interview for places, but we do look at the application to be sure that applicants have the requisite abilities to do an advanced degree. And so giving time to your research proposal, which is like an extended abstract of 500 words, is really important as part of our selection criteria. I think this year we had about 108 applicants for just under 20 places. So that, that application form and giving it time and filling it in properly is critical. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that's fantastic. Thank you all so much. I think we kind of touched on there what assessment might look like in the applications you assess. So maybe we could kind of chat a little bit more about that and kind of what makes a good assessment or a good application rather. What kind of key factors are you looking to lift from the application so that it kind of stands out from the many that I'm sure you get every year? And so if anyone would like to jump in on that, what kind of key factors there are that makes a good assessment? Would anyone like to go first?
I'm happy to come in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I think it's worth bearing in mind that people will be like I said, somewhere along that squiggly line after graduation from psychology. So, we are conscious that people will have had different experiences, different levels of experience, and, will have had different opportunities in terms of academic, but also maybe more applied experience as well. But trying to get across all of those things is really important. I think in terms of our particular program, we have a personal statement, which is a really important part of the application. And really, I think the important thing in thinking about completing the personal statement from our perspective is that it is an opportunity for the applicants to really think about why this is the next logical step for them. If they have future plans, to kind of maybe to outline what those might be, but if they don't, to also outline that, but really thinking about the why of doing this and how it might, allow them to do something that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise if they didn't have this qualification. We do have, I suppose, quite a number of research-related credits as well, because we have both a systematic review module and also a research project module. So, it's something to be aware of for applicants, but also to be aware that that is something that we will look at in terms of, track record across your research modules, things like the research project that you might have done in your final year. Those kinds of things are really relevant. Ultimately, we like to take all aspects on board. So it's not just going to be down to, I did really, really well in terms of my final year project, or, I topped my year or whatever. It is really that kind of rounded individual who has, a variety of interests, and where possible has looked to try to, add to their skill set. I always really enjoy seeing where you can see somebody progressing year on year throughout their degree, or just having a degree of self insight that they demonstrate in their systematic review, not their systematic review, sorry, their personal statement as well. And because we have people who will go on to research, who will be going on to work, who will be working and doing this part-time, who will go on to professional doctorates, really thinking about making sure that you, as an applicant, understand how psychology is so broad, how the opportunities are broad, and how it can also be challenging in terms of, setting a goal of becoming a clinical psychologist and realizing that takes a long time. So I think having a degree of realism in the personal statement is important as well. So those are just a few initial thoughts anyway.
That's brilliant, Sinead. Thank you so much. And I think the individualism of each application is probably very important across the board. We touched on it in yesterday's session as well, but really it's about the person and their want and their trajectory, really, that kind of makes the application. So thank you so much. And would anyone else maybe like to jump on and chat about the kind of the key things you might look for in an application or anything like that?
Yeah, happy to cover it. So similarly, the personal statement is a really important one. It's a really good site for reflection on the skills and experience that you're bringing already, but also where you're going. What is your trajectory? How would you use this course? What are the skills that you want to get from it? And in that, then we can see that you've researched what the program is. So a real no-no is kind of putting in a statement that you've done for some other course, that's just a generic thing that doesn't really give a sense of who you are, what the course is, or why you're applying. And it just shows a lack of kind of reflection and thought for why applying for this course at this time in this institute. And for example, our program has modules on service design and evaluation and critical community psychology and psychological skills with families. Another course might have a different orientation. So we're looking for the goodness of fit between applicant and student. And then, as I mentioned, the research statement, you really want to evaluate, have you the capacity to perform well in this course, according to, to get the degree that you deserve. So we need to see evidence that you have the capacity to put together a research proposal at that level. There's some core things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Would anyone else maybe like to hop on and chat about the process of the assessment?
I can talk about the conversion. So first of all, we have to make sure that the constraints are met. So we have a few applicants. A quite common reason for rejection is we have a lot of applicants who are overqualified. So we have a constraint of having up to 2 modules, CS-related modules on your transcripts, and there are a few applicants that have more. So first we make sure that everyone is qualified for the program, and then we explore the statements that they're writing, why they are interested in doing that. And also the reference letters. We have 2 reference letters. So sometimes we get bad reference letters. So these are good reasons to consider why we want to accept the applicants. But we don't really focus on, for example, on the university the students did their primary degree. We care a lot on diversity. We want to bring students from multiple backgrounds. So we focus a lot on the statements and the reference letters. Simon, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I would say so. I think the only other thing maybe to mention on top of that is a lot of people fall through the cracks because they underestimate the maths requirements. So we get a lot of students who try to appeal against not having met the maths requirements. So that's a very, very strong requirement. It's one that we are the most firm on, which is an H5 or equivalent. Okay, if you haven't got an H5 and you're leaving cert, then we look to see that you have a real maths module at undergrad. And when I say real maths, unfortunately, I don't mean research methods, right? I mean an actual like linear algebra or calculus or something like that.
And we have this requirement because we are part of the College of Science. So you cannot be College of Science and don't have maths background, minimum maths background. Another thing that we explore as well is work experience. So if someone has studied, I don't know, let's say physics with 0 CS modules on their transcripts, but they work as a developer for 10 years, they are overqualified as well. So we have up to 2 years of work experience in computer science roles, because then you have already been converted. We don't need to convert you in the CS, right?
I just popped a question. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt there. So sorry, forgive me. Would statistics count, Simon and Dimitri, for the maths requirement? It can, but we have to look at it carefully in terms of outcomes or what the actual module entailed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the emphasis should be on the mathematics, not say on research methods. So if it's a statistics class for analyzing survey data, for example, which you might see, or for qualitative analysis, possibly not. Okay, statistics is one of those fringe cases where we have to look at it very carefully to decide. But you can always ask us in advance before you make your application.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
We also take the description of the module. So if we see, for example, statistics, we don't reject it immediately from the name of the module. We check the description of the module and decide afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you very much. And this is a great time to just underline the fact that we really would love you to pop some questions into the chat. We're going to dedicate some time at the end. So obviously throughout, please do. But yeah, Rebecca will be keeping an eye on the chat. So definitely pop any questions you have in there. But yes, John, would you like to maybe speak a little bit about what a kind of good application might look like for the user experience design course?
Yeah, I think the personal statement, as we mentioned already, that's very important because you're looking for somebody that's going to be interested in the subject area. Our program is a part-time program, so I think it's very difficult to work full-time and study part-time. It takes a lot of commitment, and you really don't want to take on people if you think they're not going to make it through the course. So the first thing when I'm looking at an applicant is, will this person make it through the course? One of the things that we do look for is some prior knowledge of user experience design, particularly around like interactive design and prototyping. We assume a certain amount of prior knowledge in terms of the ability to use some of the digital tools like Figma and stuff like that. So we would look for a portfolio. So in the portfolio, then I'm looking to see, well, what have people done in that portfolio? And to make a really good portfolio, you're not just going to demonstrate, give examples of work that you've done, but you're also going to critique it. Because I think one of the important things like about doing postgrad work is that it's not just a course about developing, learning new skills. It's also, I like to say, it's about teaching people how to think slightly differently, think more analytically. You know, there's a whole lot of soft skills in there that you try to get people to work on, you know. And the subject area, be it computing, psychology, whatever, like it's really just an excuse for teaching people how to think a bit more deeply and stuff like that.
That's brilliant. I think teaching people how to think differently is definitely never a bad thing. I think it's more of that should be done, I think. But that's brilliant. Thank you so much. So I think maybe there's a lot of students who are kind of looking towards, so final year matters moving on. We look after students in their penultimate and final years of their studies. So maybe there's people who are just before their final year and they're starting to think about postgraduate programs, they're starting to maybe think about applications. And so how best can they really just sit down and prepare to look for programs and start thinking about applications? How can they best kind of prepare themselves to think about that journey in their life? If anyone would like to hop on.
I mean, I suppose probably go to the open days. You know, we have graduate fairs. Most universities and institutions have graduate fairs. Because of COVID, a lot of these sometimes have recordings in case you can't go in person. You can look at a past one. You have Grad Island as well, of course, in the IDS once a year, where most of the universities will be there with their brochures and things to talk to. There isn't quite the same as the higher options. There isn't really a higher options for postgrad. It's not quite at the same level, but I mean, honestly, go, you know, look at the websites, think more about what you want to achieve, right? You don't do postgrad because you don't know what else to do. You should pick postgrad because you know this course will get me closer to my life goal, whatever that life goal is. Okay, for some people that's making money, that's fine. Okay, but you know, ultimately you should be taking on a postgraduate course because you want to continue that lifelong learning pathway that you started in college or university or in school or whatever. And so I would very much talk somebody out of postgrad being plan B, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Simon. Would anyone else like to maybe hop on just on that topic of choosing postgrad study? What are important considerations maybe to consider when choosing postgrad study?
I think if you're an undergraduate and you're thinking about doing postgrad, you probably don't want to have a feeling of, I'm tired of studying and learning. You don't want to be sick of school, so to speak, because postgrad courses, if anything, require you to be even more interested in continuing your own education, because a lot of postgrad work, it's going to be it's going to require even more self-motivation than undergrad work will be. So I think it's really important that you want to do a postgrad course. You have to be interested in the subject area. You have to have a passion for it, I think.
It's also, I think, can we talk about the time commitment as well? You know, I think someone touched on earlier the balance between work and doing a part-time course. I think it was yourself, John. The time commitment is huge for people. So I think that's a consideration. Would anyone disagree with that in the group? You're all with the same. Okay, great. I actually have a question here from Dawn O'Connor. She just wanted to know if it's best to have an academic reference primarily, particularly if you're going for postgraduates with central research components. Is it, in terms of picking your referees, what are the best? Who do you say? Oh, I mean, Oliver Stone, Andy Tate. No.
I think having an academic referee is really important. I
Yeah.
think probably all agree on that, and having somebody that will speak about you personally, so somebody that kind of knows you, knows your work, has, you know, can give a kind of sense of a flavor of who you are. But the other thing that really helps someone stand out in our system is kind of volunteer work or kind of things they've done outside of their course. Speaking to the passion that you're talking about, John, you know, it shows that somebody has a real interest in and drive to gain expertise and skills in their area. And so often the things you do, what you might think of as your free time, they are actually your real interests. They really show where your heart is and thinking about how you can really make the most of those achievements. And so if you have an option for a second referee, having somebody that knows you in that kind of capacity would be another good choice. But your primary referee is probably an academic.
That's great, absolutely. And I think as well, just speaking of finding that bridge between your kind of personal hobbies or volunteering or anything like that, and then academic as well. In applications, how big a part does academic writing play? How important is it to kind of find that perfect blend of academic writing while telling a story of your own kind of personal trajectory and want to study? How important is that? No takers?
I mean, I can answer it, but I don't want to speak first. Maybe let somebody else talk first.
Everybody's holding back. I'll go. I think it is. It's not an academic piece of work that you're submitting, you know, from my perspective anyway, like the personal statement. But what we would be looking for is things like, you know, the ability to clearly communicate. And, you know, academic writing is just one form of assessment that we would do within our program. We're very much interested in, you know, how we would communicate with different audiences for different purposes at different levels. So I think the level at which this is coming in at from our program's perspective is that you can demonstrate a degree of reflective writing, but also that you can very clearly structure it in a way that communicates, you know, your goals, your experience, and what this is going to facilitate you in doing, like that piece of fit, I suppose, that Angela was mentioning before. So I wouldn't say that it's an academic piece in the sense that you're not going to be citing sources and, you know, referencing, and each academic discipline might have different writing conventions, but it should be professional, not necessarily formal, well thought through, well structured, and that you're showing that you have an ability to get your point across and do so in a way that will interest the reader.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think taking away that kind of possibly intimidating idea that it is a kind of academic piece of work. I remember when I was doing my undergrad and postgrad pathways were kind of looming ahead of me, and I was going, okay. I remember speaking to someone, I said, do I need references for my personal statement? And they were like, no, it's definitely not an academic piece of writing. So yeah, I think that's definitely a great way to kind of bridge that potential intimidation that might be there. So yeah, would anyone else maybe like to speak a little bit about maybe personal statements, or are you okay?
Louisa, could I come in on the question? It's just an interesting one in the chat. What if your work experience project is nothing to do with what you want to go forward in? One of my favorite acknowledgements in a BA dissertation was, thanks to my friend Catherine, who said, this is a psychology dissertation, who asked me, what are you going to do with a degree in biochemistry? So she'd obviously started off in biochemistry and made the switch. So it's not at all unusual that you would do something that you discover you hate as part of an undergraduate program. And that's all part of the learning. But then you have to show where it's taken you to and what you would see your trajectory as, and where this master's course, how it will help you to fulfill that path you're on. So
I think, yeah, and Simon,
really argue your case, show that.
Sorry, Simon had said something similar to that at the start, that a lot of the people that you have on your courses may have started a completely different discipline and moved forward into where they are now, and that can add a real dynamic into the class dynamic, because they're not coming from the same place, so they would have certain strengths or abilities that others may not have, and that creates a really interesting, diverse group of students to work with, and to they make this journey together to a large extent too, which is really exciting.
This is very interesting, because we see, for example, that there are students with a background in music that are very good in programming, and you don't expect that. And there are other students who are studying something else that is closer to CS, but it's not as easy for them as the musicians to understand. So, I mean, this diversity is one of the advantages of our program, and mostly because they interact a lot with each other and they learn a lot from each other.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. I think that. Oh, sorry, go on, John, please.
I would just echo some of the stuff that was said already. Especially around, things that you mightn't consider important, like the voluntary work or involvement in sports clubs or sport activities. Like that can show huge commitment and determination, which you might require for doing a postgrad course. We've had people from a diverse background as well. On our second year of our course at the moment, we have somebody who's working as a hairdresser. But they really wanted to get into the field of user experience design, and did an awful lot of work in their own time to get themselves up to a level where they submitted an application and they were offered a place. And that person shows a great empathy for people. And it's not something that you would ever be able to express in on a CV or something like that, but it came across in her personal statement, in the way she described what she wanted and the way she worked, and that's a great skill to have in our field.
Absolutely, yeah,
that's so true. I think that it's like medicine. If people don't have people skills, they may have a lot of, and they need the combination, those transferable skills and that sense of empathy that, John, you were talking about. It makes a huge difference in all of our lives. So so I wouldn't ever rule yourself out from something that you just have a real passion. You've done the research. This is something that really excites you. Yeah, I say go for it.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. And what has come up time and time again, I know I touched on it earlier and it came up yesterday in our session, is that it really is all about the person. If you think that you might be interested in it and you do your research and say, God, that really sounds like me, I'm in a position in my life where I've had experience, be it academic or personal, that I really think I should go for this. There's always supports out there. I think it's important to have a look at the course, email the person whose contact details are there, and just ask the questions. I think again, taking down those barriers of maybe fear or intimidation is kind of the first step, because these folks are, as we see clearly here today, are very much open to helping and giving advice and giving guidance. And yeah, it's all about the passion for it. So if you think it might sound like something you'd be interested in, that might value your journey, then absolutely go for it, regardless of what you've studied before or where you've worked before or anything like that, be it relevant to the course specifically or not. So yeah, I think that kind of holistic message is really great to have.
So as well, I mean, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you don't get selected, and you can ask for feedback, and that, well, you weren't strong enough in this area. It might be maths, or so then if this is something you really want to do, then you bridge that gap, and people will help you this is what, we would like to see happening, and then you reapply. Life is, when you're 21, hopefully life is very, very long. So you have lots of options, and you can also, do another master's after that, and another one after that, and just live your life with the way that you wish to live it. But I do think that it can be daunting, and sometimes it's easier to do nothing because then you don't fail. But frankly, failure is where we learn. So, and I will quote Samuel Beckett: fail again, fail better. That's kind of, I think, what we all sometimes forget, that is where we create resilience for ourselves and find that path that you wish to go into. Oh, actually, I was going to ask another question. I'm so sorry, Louisa, forgive me. I know that for our undergraduates, the concept of RPL probably isn't applicable in this particular fora, but for those who may see the recording or they may have other people in their lives, could you talk a little bit, do your programs consider applicants going via RPL? And RPL meaning, for some people who don't know, the recognition of prior learning. Sometimes it's called validation of prior learning or applied work experience, or there's other language around it. But is that something that all of the programs would look at? I'm seeing heads nodding.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to speak to that, Simon? Because you're vigorous. I like that.
No, because ours is a little bit more complicated than that.
Okay, good. Okay.
We can actually end up disqualifying people because of RPL. So our RPL is actually quite complicated. So let's take the simplest example. So the individual has missed the 2-1, let's say. They have the maths degree, but they've missed the 2-1. And they've gone away and say on something like Udemy, they've picked up a load of intro to programming courses. And we go, okay, this person has clearly got a passion for computer science. We can then begin the process of considering that. Now, this process can be quite complicated because if, for example, they went away and said, oh, look, I didn't get my 2-1, I got my 2-2, but I went back to my home institution and I picked up 2 or 3 computer science modules, then they're going too far, okay? So then they're showing that they have an interest, but then they've picked up too much computer science and then disqualify themselves. The other side of this can be if the individual, say, gets a 2-1, but they go away and they do a master's on a completely different subject and they pass that, we can take that as RPO, that they have completed a master's and they've shown the ability to complete a master's. And that can then allow us to make small, I suppose, mitigations, I think was the word you used, but we would say compensations in this case, right? That they're able to complete a level 9 award, therefore we can expect them to be able to apply themselves and do so on the conversion masters. But it's very complicated. RPL is a bit of a minefield. It can be very, very complicated to assess.
Great. No, it can be. And work experience, though, could figure into that as well, couldn't it?
So it can, but also for both reasons. You can disqualify yourself with work experience too. For example, let's say
this to me.
somebody. So for example, let's say somebody goes away and they work as a software developer for 1 year. They don't have their 2-1. We'd go, yep, that's fine. Potentially, okay. It's not resolute and guaranteed. But let's say they did it for 3 years, and then we were saying, does this person really need to do a conversion to computer science? They've been working in the area for 3 years. So, it's a very finely balanced game.
But their personal statement will let you know how passionate they are to go back into education and to build a network of like-minded individuals around them. And actually, I think there's another question in here. It's a long one. This is the UCC team. Oh, sorry, Dimitri, go ahead.
What Simon said. So our internal rule is that you should not have more than 2 years of experience.
Okay.
On the day that you will start the program. But again, of course, all these the personal statements matter, and it's not a hard constraint, but it's something that we have in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there's a very important reason for this. We don't want these people to be the best in the class and upset everybody else, right? Everybody's supposed to be starting from zero. So if somebody's starting from 4 or 5 years of industry experience in the subjects, they have an unfair advantage over everybody else.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I think this one is for yourself, Angela. UCC MA in Applied Psychology considerations that are RPL may also be given applicants who do not meet the minimum academic criteria, but who present the second class honors in a primary honors degree. Yeah. So in psychology,
Yeah, Angela,
yeah.
popped that in, Rebecca.
So yeah, no, so that's really.
So information saying yes, we do consider prior recognition of prior learning. It's very rare people get in on that, but if you have direct relevant work experience or a relevant master's degree and a minimum of a 2H2 degree in psychology, it would be considered.
John, we do, don't we?
So yeah, we do. So our program, like we look for, there's minimum academic requirements, and then we also look for some prior experience. And sometimes we get people with lots of prior experience, but they don't meet the academic requirements. And this can be a problem because ultimately they're going to have to, write a thesis at the end of the course, and we need to make sure that they're able to do that. So we basically get students who don't meet the academic requirements to go to an RPL process, which involves them basically showing how through their work experience they would have met the learning outcomes associated with an honours degree. Okay, so we get them to do some written work, and they have to use that to show how they would have addressed all the learning outcomes for an honours degree through their work experience. And a lot of it just comes down to presenting examples of their work and then discussing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sinead, did you want to add anything on that?
Just, I suppose we would be most similar probably to what Angela has described, that occasionally we will get an application where the applicant has maybe a 2-2, but significant experience, other skills, other training, and if that is the case, a special case for admission can be considered by the faculty teaching and learning committee, but it is quite rare, and I suppose it's not as straightforward as it might sound, but it is something that, if somebody is aware that this is an issue, or that it may become an issue, that they should have a conversation with the program team, with maybe me as the program coordinator, just to figure out where they stand, and what the processes might be. I would always encourage somebody to make contact and have that conversation, because it's a little bit complicated to try to explain in a minute or two.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm conscious of time. I know we're kind of reaching the within the last 10 minutes. So maybe if I could get a sentence or two from each of you. So our students in third and fourth year are kind of sitting down, they have their programs in mind and they're getting ready to write their applications. Do you have a kind of 1 or 2 sentences just to kind of sum up how they can kind of put their best foot forward, how they can stand out? I know we've covered a lot of really great advice and tips, but if there's a kind of succinct way to say, okay, this is how you'll guarantee to stand out in a pile of applications that an assessor is looking at, what would it be? So maybe if we go one by one, if that's okay. John, you're first on my screen. If you want
well, I would say research the course or courses that you're applying for. And understand what the course is about, what the entry requirements are. And if you feel you're a good fit, sell yourself. Be confident, like.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Angela?
I think the classic interview question, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And then look at the course description and the modules and the content, and how do they get you to that place? And are you at the starting point for where you can apply? So really show how your knowledge of the course can get you to where you want to go.
Thank you so much. Simon, over to you next.
I think I would say make it easy for us to find that you meet the requirements, because we get so many applications where we have to dig through hundreds of, no, not hundreds, but lots and lots of pages of content just to say, does this person meet the requirements? And the easier you make that for us, then obviously the easier it is for us to offer you a place.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dimitri.
I would say the best way to see if the program fits your needs is by finding someone who graduated from the program. And we have, usually for the conversion, we have a LinkedIn group, so it's easy to join and ask people. And so I think it's easier to figure out if you really want to do it or not. So you can find the previous graduates.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. And Sinead?
Yeah, similar to some of the other advice, to research the program, but to, in that research, talk to graduates, talk to alumni, engage with the PSI Student Affairs Group, go to the PSI NIBPS Careers Fair, talk to staff, but also talk to people who have the career that you want to have, and find out how they got there. Because you'll find out that there are lots and lots of different ways that people reach that end. The other thing that I would say is that generally this is happening at a time that's really, really busy for students. And it's very difficult to concentrate on identifying a program or identifying, deadlines, getting your applications together when you're already in the midst of maybe a final year project. You're trying to achieve that high grade in order to become eligible for these. So don't treat the deadline like a target. You can get your application in at any stage once applications have opened. Give yourself time to do this. Break it down into bite-sized chunks so that it is manageable and you're not sitting down and saying, I have to get my application written tonight. So, a lot of it is around making our jobs easy so that we can see that you are eligible, that you're enthusiastic, that you're a good fit, but also make your job easy. Be kind to yourself, recognize that it's a busy time, and, just give yourself the time to do this. Do yourself justice and recognize that maybe doing yourself justice means taking a year out after your course and going in a year's time, and that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely, that is brilliant. And thank you all so much. And I think you've all nailed on the head. I think definitely taking your time, doing your research, and recognizing, giving yourself the best chance. I just wanted to pop up the contact details of our panel today. I definitely think making use of making use sounds very negative, but using the people around you and getting their advice. Our lovely careers officer Dawn O'Connor is actually here. She's in the chat today, very active. Dawn is situated on the second floor in the library in IDT, and Dawn will cover everything postgraduate with you. She will go through CV clinics, personal statements, everything like that, and just really make use. Incidentally, there is an alumni panel happening with FYMMO this evening on Teams. You can register there through the QR code. So definitely pop along to that if you'd like to hear from. We have a range of alumni coming along to chat about what they've been doing since they left IDT, be it personal projects. Some have their own production companies, and we have some in postgraduate study as well. And then on Monday, we have a thesis panel full of in-house experts who will chat to you about shaping a really, really great thesis. But I just want to really extend my thanks to our panel today. I think this has been such an invaluable and enriching chat. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, folks.